Welcome everybody to the Life Science Breakout session of our virtual trade mission to Canada. For those who didn't join us in the last session, my name is Miles Hanson. I'm the President and CEO of World Trade Center Utah. And we're excited for the opportunity we have to hear from some life science industry experts from virtually all across Canada. We want to make sure we have plenty of time for some questions and discussion at the end. And so I'll be brief in my introductory remarks. I just want to recognize briefly the partners that we have on this virtual trade mission. We're very grateful to the Canadian Consulate General in Denver for their support in arranging our speakers from all across Canada for us. We're grateful to our partners here in Utah, the Salt Lake Chamber and the Governor's Office of Economic Development. And we're very grateful for our partners in key cities in Canada that we'll have the opportunity to hear from Toronto Global, the Vancouver Economic Commission, and Montreal International. You know, the life science industry is a critical industry here in the state of Utah. We have several global leaders in medical devices and pharmaceuticals, and we are emerging as a hub of biotechnology here in the United States and globally. We've been involved here at World Trade Center Utah with several other partners to set up what we're calling the BioHive, which will be a brand to help companies here in Utah coordinate more closely to grow together as an ecosystem, as well as to assist all of us who are involved in promoting Utah around the world and opening up trade and investment opportunities to make sure that Utah is as well known for healthcare innovation as some of the other strong ecosystems here in the United States, including San Diego, San Francisco, and the Boston area. And so I'm excited for this breakout session, for the opportunity to hear about the industry in Canada and what those trade and investment and partnership opportunities may be between this very, very strong ecosystem of Utah companies and equally strong potential partners in Canada. What we're going to do today is we'll have an opportunity to get a national overview, at which point we'll have a panel discussion with key leaders in each of our three cities that we're focused on today. And again, those are Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. At this point, I'll go ahead and introduce our national speaker, Shane Russell. It's great to have you with us today. Thank you, Shane. Shane is a very passionate and seasoned executive with over 15 years of experience within the healthcare industry. Having joined MEDTRONIC Canada in 2007, he currently serves as their Director of Health Systems and Strategies and Government Affairs in QUEBEC. And for those that aren't aware, MEDTRONIC is a global medical technology company, Fortune 500 company. I guess they weren't until they set up some office in Ireland, which I guess took them off the Fortune 500, but not because of a decreasing size, but because they're continuing to grow their global footprint. In his current role, Shane establishes and manages key executive relationships with various stakeholders throughout the healthcare industry and government, while also leading the execution of MEDTRONIC's value-based healthcare strategy by identifying how MEDTRONIC's entire portfolio of technologies, as well as services and solutions, may be applied to improve patient outcomes, decrease healthcare utilization costs, and increase provider care delivery efficiencies. Shane's passion centers on not simply bringing technologies, as well as services and solutions to market, but also ensuring their successful implementation and utilization to the benefit of the entire healthcare system, and particularly to patients. Aside from his MEDTRONIC functions, Shane also plays a very active role within MEDEC, the national association representing Canada's innovative medical technology industry. Shane is currently starting a new mandate as president of MEDEC QUEBEC's Public Affairs Committee, while also serving on its executive committee. As part of his dual roles with MEDTRONIC and MEDEC, he regularly interacts with government on policy issues affecting the company and industry. Shane holds a bachelor's degree in business administration and has completed targeted executive programs from the Harvard Business School and the Wharton School of Business. And Shane is very active in the healthcare ecosystem through many, many other committees and boards of directors and advisory groups. So Shane, we're grateful that you take some time to help our companies understand the lay of the land, if you will, of healthcare innovation in Canada, and also your role participating in our panel. So Shane, I'll go ahead and pass the baton to you. And just in terms of managing the program, after Shane finishes, Courtney Ray, who leads all of World Trade Center Utah's international programming, she'll pick up the baton and she will moderate the presentations and discussion with our panel. So thank you everyone for being with us, and Shane, over to you.
All right, thank you. Hello everyone, and I definitely have to work on a shorter bio. Just listening to that, I realized that that was clearly wrong. So I was asked to give a short overview on the medtech industry in Canada. Obviously, I'll start at a very high level, but Canada, with its population of around 38 million people, is divided into 10 provinces and 3 territories. And with our universal healthcare system, I think the first thing we just need to all be aware of is that each province is essentially driving their own healthcare system and decisions. And so Canada is one country, but when you're looking at our provincial healthcare systems, it's kind of like dealing with 10 countries. In terms of the overall medical device market in Canada, it's about 2% of the global market. We're ranked 8th in terms of market size globally, with a market of about $7 to $8 billion. And that's data that came from 2017. And it's also growing at a compound or a CAGR rate of around 6% annually. So that's kind of the high level overview of medtech industry. In terms of some of the key trends that we're seeing, obviously everything to do with innovative procurement is very hot. I think everybody has recognized that just buying on the lowest price is not the best solution. And so everyone is trying to figure out how we can move both legislation and also concrete tenders to a more of a value-based approach, where you're looking to procure more on specific needs and asking for solutions to those needs. And that will allow essentially to improve patient outcomes and also to improve efficiency of the healthcare system. And for companies, it really allows us to move to introducing more innovative either technologies or services and solutions, which sometimes we weren't always able to introduce due to some of the procurement ways culturally of doing things. Second aspect is obviously, and I think this is true everywhere, but moving more to an outcomes-driven decision-making and funding models. I think everyone has recognized that placing the patient at the center, which I won't get into too many details, but I think a lot of you are aware of value-based healthcare and a lot of the work that has been done globally, but a lot of it has been done also at Harvard. But I think you're seeing a lot of healthcare systems around the world trying to figure out how to improve outcomes and to do it based off of data-driven decision-making. So that's obviously a key trend that has made its way to Canada as well. The whole question of having access to data to be able to improve outcomes and help with healthcare system efficiency, that is obviously a hot topic, and everyone's trying to figure out the right balance between access and also patient privacy. I think that's nothing new, but that's something that's obviously very hot here as well, and a lot of effort has been obviously poured into that. The whole question of digital health, before COVID-19, I would say that it was already a hot topic. Since COVID-19, it's become extremely hot topic. So how do you make sure that all the right legislation is in place and also the proper reimbursement models are in place? And clearly patient providers as well, our healthcare system providers have definitely gotten a big taste of it and don't want to move backwards. So what you're seeing now is each province trying to figure out the right model and reimbursement models and funding moving forward. And I'd say the last key trend is everything to do with artificial intelligence. Canada is a hot hub in terms of AI. A lot of global leaders are based in Canada. And so obviously we're trying to make best use of that expertise. And what you've seen is a lot of effort going into other industries to start off. But now what you're really realizing is everybody's trying to steer now the AI efforts in healthcare more specifically. And so that obviously would be kind of the fifth key trend that I can share with you in terms of the Canadian overall market. So I look forward to giving you a bit more specifics around Montreal in my individual section a little bit later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shane. That was really informative. Appreciate that. We'll now move on to our city panelists. We'll have 3 different speakers. Our first one is from Toronto. His name is Laurent Benazon, and he's the CEO of BenchSci, a biomedical artificial intelligence company that he founded in 2016. BenchSci's mission is to exponentially increase the speed and quality of life-saving research by empowering scientists to design more successful experiments. Laurent, go ahead and let's hear what you have to say.
Sounds good. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So thank you so much for the introduction and thank you for having me. What we do at BenchSci is that over the last 4 years, we were able to build an AI technology that can basically read the world's biomedical data, understand what successful experiments look like, and then leverage that information to empower some of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world to accelerate their preclinical research. We work with top 20 pharmaceutical companies like Novartis, Pfizer, and so on, and we do it all from Toronto. We're actually the first company in Canada that provides SaaS and software solutions to pharmaceuticals. And there's a reason why we're able to do that in Toronto and why Toronto is a key contributor to our success. And what people don't know is Toronto is not only a key contributor to our success, but actually a few more companies. There are a lot of companies in AI and life sciences, but there's a lot of leading companies that were actually forged here in Toronto, whether it's Atomwise, Cyclica, Deep Genomics. Those are all three companies that have raised their B round. We raised our B round as well. And you have earlier stage companies that are the seed stage to A stage, which are Protein Cure, Winterlight, and Phenomic AI. And there is a reason why there's so many life science, AI and life science startups in Toronto, even though there is no pharmaceutical industry here. And there are 4 key reasons for this, why Toronto's ecosystem is basically the perfect storm to become a global leader in AI and drug discovery. 1, Toronto is the birthplace of modern AI. Modern AI was invented by Jeff Hinton. He is a professor at the University of Toronto. So when deep learning started getting adopted around 4 or 5 years ago, there were a lot of people in Toronto that knew how to make it work, and it's because it was invented here. So we have a lot of access to machine learning engineers, deep learning engineers, at a cost that it's much lower than the Valley or Boston or in other areas. When we want to hire machine learning engineers, it's not hard to fill that position because there's so much talent in the market. The second piece of the puzzle, because in order to do this, you have to merge science and engineering and machine learning. The second piece is having access to a lot of PhD scientists. So Toronto is actually a top 20 research institute in biology in the world. There are a lot of PhD scientists here, and there are not a lot of industry jobs. And this is something that is different from what you see in the West Coast or the East Coast, where you have a lot of talent, but the competition is fierce because there's so much demand. Here, there is not a lot of demand because there's not a lot of R&D that exists in Canada because of certain IP laws that prevent companies from the States and Europe to open to conduct their research here. There's a lot of very, very talented individuals. When we post a position to hire a PhD biologist, we usually get 200 candidates in a few hours. So there's a lot of great knowledge here. Which leads me to my third point. It's much more affordable because there's so much supply, but the demand is low. Add to that the currency and the fact that the majority of companies here raise money from the States. It's much, much, much cheaper to run a company in Canada than it is in the States, probably half from what we see from the amount of money that's being raised and how far it takes you. And the final piece of the puzzle is that it's very close to Boston. So I'm talking about the pre-COVID world. I used to fly to Boston in the early days once a week. It was my second home. And the fact it's only 1 hour away, the same time zone, Cambridge and Boston is really where everything is happening, where you start working closely with your customers and forging those early relationships. So these 4 pieces of the puzzle is what, in my opinion, makes Toronto the perfect storm to become a global leader in AI and drug discovery. And that is it.
Thank you so much, Laurent. We really appreciate it. And Shane, we're going to go back to you to speak more specifically about Montreal.
Yeah, just should be seeing my slides now.
We do. Thank you.
They're good. All right. So I was asked to talk a little bit about MEDTRONIC, our presence here in Montreal, and also some of the key reasons that make Montreal very attractive from a medtech perspective. So very quickly, MEDTRONIC, obviously a global company with technologies and services and solutions that cover more than 70 conditions in the human body. And so you see them mainly split out here. I won't go through all 70. I think a summary is fine for all of you. We are operating in over 150 countries. You'll see that little dot on the top left in the Americas. We obviously want to talk a little bit about that today because we do have a pretty strong presence in Montreal. In 2008, MEDTRONIC acquired a small company called Cryocath for AF ablation. And over the years, that has grown to be quite a successful acquisition. With now over 650 employees. We're exporting about 95% of our products globally. There's another 100 people in our head office as well in Montreal, so about 750 people in Montreal overall. And what we appreciate is, as I mentioned, it was a very successful acquisition, a very healthy growth over the years. And we've always been very well supported throughout our years here. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about some of the strengths that we see here. I want to start, obviously, and this is obviously top of mind, but it's a very competitive business environment. So you have a government leader right now who has said very openly many times that Quebec is open for business, and he's willing to put his money where his mouth is. And so we have very generous incentives on the R&D front, clinical research and manufacturing. So that's obviously one of the reasons why we feel Montreal is a great place to be. Secondly, we obviously appreciate the well-educated and highly skilled workforce. We have great world-class universities and technical colleges. The city has regularly been in the top 5, also top 1, I think, a couple of years ago in terms of best places to study. So students really appreciate coming to Montreal and studying here. And also there's the expertise, because there's a very strong life science background. Pharmaceutical companies have had a lot of their head offices in Montreal over the past many years. And so there's a background of deep-rooted kind of life sciences expertise. Then also, I think the engineering, we have great engineering schools, but also with, if I take one example, the aerospace sector, Montreal being one of the global hubs, we also have a lot of great engineers. And actually one of the CEOs of Cryocath said that he regularly tried to poach engineers from the aerospace industry because they were kind of prime targets for Cryocath. So that obviously is another reason why we have access to quality people. And then the whole concentration of tech and AI brings obviously that expertise as well. So number 2, obviously, very important, well-educated, highly skilled workforce. The third reason, everything to do with market access. Canada has 3 global trade agreements giving access to 1.3 billion consumers. So with the obviously agreements with US and Mexico and Europe, and also the Trans-Pacific partnership. So 1.3 billion people are accessible. And as mentioned previously, close accessibility to kind of east northern US, and the critical mass is another key strength of being located here. Fourth, promising venue for health innovation and investment. The Quebec government, and obviously Montreal is its main city, the Quebec government launched a very ambitious life science strategy, and they announced 3 key measures which were beneficial to the medtech industry. One, they created the Quebec Health Innovation Bureau with its role to be able to accelerate and facilitate integration of innovation in the province. And so they have a chief health and innovation officer and also a small team of people. that analyze projects, make them better, and then help you navigate to making the ask to government, and then also integrate it into the healthcare system. Secondly, they also created some support funds to be able to do special projects that will answer specific needs of the healthcare system. So what they will do is they'll announce a contest, and they'll give a certain amount of money available, and they'll choose a certain amount of projects that will have won the contest. And so companies are free to submit their ideas and their solutions to those specific needs that the Quebec healthcare system is looking to address. And the third is they also optimize the whole evaluation process for health technologies, so the HTA, with one body in Quebec called INES, which is in charge of HTAs. But they really facilitated and they streamlined kind of the process to be able to go through an HTA. And the good news is that in Montreal and in Quebec, when the HTA is favorable, that normally leads systematically to the funding by the province. And lastly, we have to mention, obviously, that Montreal is a great place to invest, work, and live. I mentioned about the students naming it as, the top city or one of the top cities every year in terms of where to study. But I think it's also been shown in multiple studies in terms of foreign direct investment as being a great multicultural city, one of the safest cities in the world. It's also got great universities, obviously, as I mentioned, universal healthcare system. And we're also pretty friendly. So we'd love to see you here and to be part of our MedTech ecosystem. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Shane. Really appreciate that. We'll now move on to our Vancouver speaker, Miriam Sidehi, and she is the CEO and co-founder of MetaOptima, where Molescope and Derma Engine were developed for intelligent skin analytics, imaging, and management. Miriam has won all sorts of awards, but recently she was credited as one of BC's most influential women in BC Business Magazine, and her company was listed as ready to rocket business in the area of digital health. Go ahead, Miriam.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Can I share my screen now?
I'm sorry, Miriam, I couldn't hear you. Did you just ask me something?
Can you see my screen? I was wondering if I can share my screen and present.
Oh, there we go. Yep, we can
yes?
see your screen now.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to join you today. I was wondering what should be the few slides that I will have and the 10 minutes time that I have for representing Vancouver, and I thought just going through our own journey maybe is the most relevant. And I was thinking about where we started and what we do today and where we are today. So my name is Mariam. I'm the CEO and co-founder of MetaOptima. By training, I'm a computer scientist. My PhD was in medical imaging and computing science and machine learning. And also I had a scholarship in dermatology, and I was trained at UBC Skincare Center and BC Cancer Agency. As a scientist, I realized there was a big problem in the world that was actually dermatology problems, and I realized that there is a solution for it, that actually we can use technology to serve millions of patients with better outcomes and also serve our doctors in frontline. We started from Vancouver, our journey, and I actually want to show you a couple of things from our experience so far and where we are today. In July, we reached our goal, the big milestone for the company of serving over 1 million patients globally. I'm sure you know how difficult it is to build a business successfully and grow it, and it's even more difficult if it's in healthcare and life sciences. But we've had really the opportunity to build MetaOptima from Vancouver. We have 3 offices in Sydney, Australia. Recently started our expansion from Boston in the US market. And in July, as I mentioned, we reached over 1 million patients. And today we've had over 4.6 million cases in the platform, serving over 1,000 centers, global centers of excellence. Just by a small team that started from Canada, very passionate about the problem that we were serving, with a big, bold vision that AI and technology will come to serve our patients and doctors, and we made it happen from our beautiful British Columbia. Just a little bit about the ecosystem that we are serving here. So we focused on dermatology. I'm sure you know how big is the problem. You probably know many people, and probably you've already had yourself problems with the skin. Limited access to specialists is a global problem, and also having primary care doctors in the front line to serve these patients, over 2 billion patients globally, means that we don't have really access to specialists, and also our primary care doctors are not trained, which means low accuracy for diagnosis and basically lack of access to quality care. So the focus that we had was building a diagnostic engine that's intelligent. It can have superhuman performance, and also it is secure, scalable, accessible, with the vision that we had for saving life, time, and cost. With this big, bold vision really in mind, and we started with building the AI technology that we had from Vancouver, utilizing many of our amazing resources provided here, all the way from access to talents that actually were mentioned in the previous two presentations. I believe we have a unique ecosystem in Canada, and also like knowing what we have in BC, I highly, highly recommend it. Basically to build the technology here, to invest in your R&D. It's one of the best places based on what I have seen over 27 countries. And that actually helped us with building the engine that could win the competitions globally. We had 3 algorithms. We won the top competitions globally. And then also the product, the algorithms that we had, it was compared with human experts, and it won the competition again against 511 human experts. I'm sure, again, you know how difficult it is to build a technology in healthcare that needs validation, it needs clinical implementation, and having this global success and adoption means that we have done it right in the right place. So this is the map of MetaOptima, our 3 offices, our patient distribution, our doctors, and this is actually changing every day, and it's just growing, and we are expanding it actually in many more countries. That was only possible that actually we had a lot of support from our Canadian programs. I always call them part of the team. They're part of the family, and I want to highlight a couple of them here. Building a global platform that was serving hundreds of thousands of patients, we realized that you need support from the local ecosystem to implement your technology in the healthcare system. You know, with the public health systems, it's difficult to implement AI solutions and any technology solutions in healthcare. Even like traditional solutions will have difficulties to get into healthcare systems. However, using this digital supercluster project that we had in Canada federally, and also with our BC focus on digital healthcare, the opportunity was open for BC companies to collaborate together and implement the solution. Now we are launching the program with Providence Healthcare, where we are going to use our platform and products for serving patients and doctors in BC that will have the potential for national expansion. And that's the model that we have seen in Canada, successfully helping Canadian companies build, innovate, validate here, and also expand globally. I have another example. Our first client, for example, was from Building Canada program, was our CMP department, serving police officers remotely who don't have access to healthcare system necessarily with the specialist care because they're in remote areas. They do have access, but it's expensive. So how we could use the technology to help, like, for example, that one sector. In addition to that, we also have AI in BC, and I'm one of the directors, and where we are focused is really helping BC companies who are focused on AI and helping them with real life implementation and commercialization of AI technologies. So if you are focused in bringing technology and intelligence solutions to help with real life applications, I believe we have a really good ecosystem here that is really a team of university programs, academic centers, industry partners, and government programs. In addition to that, mentioned in the previous presentations as well, I believe Canada is one of the best places for access to global talent. And I mean really global, because we have imported our global talents from different countries using amazing programs that we have here for even immigration support for companies growing fast. And access to students, scientists, engineers from SFU, from UBC, from BCIT, and other academic programs. I can add to that, not just access to talent, but access to funding to bring those talents to your company and build your company. MetaOptima started with 1 intern and 2 co-founders. So Majid and I, my husband and my our CTO and my co-founder, we were both PhD graduates from SFU, and also I had training at UBC, and really nothing. We started from zero, but we had these amazing programs that actually gave us access to talents and also access to funding to bring those talents and work with them. And now those are the back, like those co-ops, interns, and early hires we had from these programs are the backbone of the company and growing this globally. And at the end, many programs in Canada supporting not only building your technology in Canada, in Vancouver, in BC, but also actively supporting you to export your technology. The global map that I showed and all those offices at the expansion opportunity that we had was really possible with working with our trade commissioners and all of the amazing resources that we have here, and I call them as part of the family. For example, I had my first meetings with our key clients, multinational clients actually, today in our consulate offices, and that was a level of support that was unique. I have been part of many different programs in different countries because of our local regional expansion and business development activities, and I have never seen one like Vancouver, one like Canada, and we will stay here. We've had offer to move to other places, but decided to stay here, grow the team, and serve millions of patients together globally. So I will stop here. Here's my contact. If you have any questions, please let me know. I will be more than happy to help and help you move here, build your technology here, and also expand and grow your business as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. We appreciate all of our panelists' time, and now we'll move on to our Q&A sessions. So our first question is, life sciences is a heavily regulated industry. In Canada, with the Health Canada system, what regulatory requirements and approval processes are necessary, especially for medical devices, since that's a large industry in Utah? And I understand, especially from Shane's presentation, that it's different by each province as opposed to a national level. So I don't know if those requirements vary by province or if they are a national requirement. So maybe Shane, you can take that question.
Yeah, so in terms of the, all the requirements for proper Health Canada consideration, I mean, that could be quite a lengthy conversation, and there's probably some better experts than me, but essentially you get your Health Canada approval, and then you can then negotiate with each province in terms of the funding per province for that technology. And so generally in the bigger provinces, they have what we call health technology assessment groups. And so they will assess kind of the clinical benefits and economic benefits of your technology. They'll do it in a predetermined amount of time that everybody kind of agrees to. And then they'll come out with a recommendation for their respective government. And so in Quebec, I gave that example previously, it's called INES, the group. And generally when their HTA is favorable, then it goes to the Minister of Health, and the Minister of Health decides to fund based off of the favorable recommendation. So it's kind of a two-step process where you go through, you get your Health Canada approval, and then you go with the provinces directly to negotiate the introduction of your technology.
Great. And then maybe David, I'm sure you're probably on the phone for this, but that could be something that we maybe figure out with him with the the contacts we would do there. So, and by the way, let me just say to the group on the phone, if any of you have any questions that we have not gotten to in this entire session, feel free to email me, and we will be happy to follow through with each of you, because I know all of you have different questions. Thank you, Shane. The second question is, I know you also touched on this, Shane, but any of you panelists can discuss this. As our companies look to market their products in Canada, it's important to understand the distribution pathways and channels there. And I understand the Canadian government is using tenders that you also mentioned, especially so they won't run out of materials during COVID. How does that process work in Canada so that our companies can get access to that tender process? Any of you can feel free to.
I can comment on the experience that we've had, for example, with the COVID-19 call for proposals, and so we recently received the pre-approval for that project. Our project was serving high risk, for example, oncology patients, and specifically focusing on dermato-oncology for the COVID-19 situation. And to go through the process, we applied, and recently we received the pre-approval. So then the program offers the solution to the testing departments and to the federal government entities, so they can find the department who will deploy the technology. So the funding is pre-approved, and the testing department will receive this fund from the government to implement it. We've had a really good experience with a similar program before, part of Building Canada program. That was, again, the same. Federal government is your first, basically, client who pays for the product to be implemented in the federal setting. And based on actually what Shane mentioned, also it's really important that with the challenge of getting to the healthcare systems, these programs are supporting the first validation, because if you have a requirement to be in the program for example, you need to have 3 times experience of selling to the similar programs as like a requirement for companies to get in, that will be very challenging in other environments. However, with these programs that by the federal government or BC or provincial governments, you get that chance of going through the tender, being part of the program, and that will count as your experience for the future national or provincial deals with the government.
So just so that I'm clear on this, you first always go to the national level, and we'll get those contacts hopefully from David, to sort of get your approval on the national level, and then they sort of fund that project, it sounds like, and then you go secondarily to the provinces, and then they have their own process at that point as well. Is that correct?
We have different programs. We have national and federal level basically programs, and also we have provincial programs. We have had success with both. For example, with the provincial program, we went to Digital Supercluster. That program is funding a partnership between Providence Healthcare, Change Healthcare, Care Team, and also their academic programs to help with the validation of the project. And also, like, for example, if you are going to the Ministry of Health and you are saying that we have a technology that helps with this, with this, with this, they want proof from you that you have seen the results in real life settings. So as part of this provincial program, you get a chance to talk to the Ministry of Health. Basically, that's what we did. We went to them and we said, what are the KPIs that you're looking for to approve payments in the future for such technologies? In terms of efficiency, in terms of saving costs, in terms of outcome for patients, physicians and patient satisfaction. So we have a list of KPIs that we are now measuring and validating in our provincial setting. That is one of the provincial projects, for example, we've had in BC. There's also another one that I mentioned, Innovation Solutions Canada, and similar to that program that we had before, Building Canada program. Those are the federal programs supporting in a similar fashion. So funding is approved, you find a partner who wants to implement it, and then that is the test bed, real life test bed to take the technology to the more commercial stage, more scalable.
Okay, and also another note to companies on the phone, we have the U.S. Commercial Services Group. For any of you who have been on our other virtual trade missions, we have an amazing one in Canada that can be very helpful in sort of simplifying this process for the US companies going over there. There's usually a small fee associated with that, which we can help you with, usually through a step grant, especially depending if you're a small or medium-sized business. And if you are quick to get in under the September 30th deadline, they're actually offering free services with COVID, depending on the size of your company. So let's definitely, if you're interested in getting help with this process, contact me so I can help connect you with the US Commercial Services Group in Canada. Okay, moving on to our next question.
Courtney.
Yep, sorry.
Yeah, maybe I can just add, but to give you maybe an example as well of how it can be both at the federal and at the provincial level. But the way it worked in Quebec, in Montreal specifically, is the Health Innovation Bureau that I talked about previously with their Chief Health Innovation Officer. What they did is they did a request for proposals to help with the COVID-19 management. And so companies could submit their ideas directly to this Innovation Bureau. They were analyzed by the team there, and then they were implemented, obviously those that get a favorable recommendation. So so that's just one more example based in Montreal of how you can have access at the provincial level as well.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, our next question is, Canada is a great location for conducting clinical trials due to its cost advantages and reduced times for drug approvals. A big draw to other countries can often be the ability to do clinical trials there. If the hospitals or healthcare systems in Canada are targeting clinical trials, that could be very interesting to many of our Utah companies. Is this something that Canada encourages, and are the clinical trials conducted in Canada recognized by the FDA in the US? Anyone have experience with clinical trials, or? Yeah.
I can answer that, not directly from our experience, because we just started our clinical trials from Australia and also foresee from Vienna. We are starting our US FDA submission. And with Health Canada, I have experience of working with other companies in this space. In my previous position, I was the director of Digital Health Hub at SFU, Simon Fraser University, where we were helping companies working with academic institutions and with healthcare system ecosystem players. In that experience, what actually we saw, approvals from Canada are not necessarily accepted directly by FDA, and it doesn't matter even CE and TGA approvals from Australia. They are not approved by FDA, but these are all building blocks of your submissions. There may be a need for regional, I'm sure there is, not there may be, there is a need for showing the data from the US with the local information that you need for approvals, but these are all building blocks. What worked for us was the protocols that we had and the validations we had in different settings, taking it to the next one and showing them what is working and what is the claim. However, each basically system requires validations based on their own criteria. One thing in Canada that is, I believe, a new program, and it's helpful for companies, the effort that Health Canada has for harmonization. So with the MDSAP program, companies in the, for example, in the MDSAP program, which is getting the approval, quality management system, and all requirements for MDSAP, will help with the validation and approvals in other markets, like, for example, for Europe, for Australia. That is our experience. But I know with FDA, since I'm directly working on our own FDA submission, there are requirements for regional data, and the process could be different, also depending on the risk level of the technology. So I'm talking about medical devices and AI, not necessarily for drugs and therapeutics. But that was our experience, that no matter where is your approval, those are really good building blocks, but not necessarily what the FDA will ask for final approvals.
Great, thank you. It looks like a question just came in saying, can these agencies support triple bottom line initiatives, pulling in NGOs, NPOs, foundations? I don't totally understand that one. Jim, do you maybe want to hop in and explain that? You can unmute yourself.
Sure. So we pull in different elements for deal flow, including technology startups, government agencies. And what we're looking to do is cross missions, so objectives. So we know that the Global 2000 have specific objectives. So for example, we work with a leading air conditioning company. Their objective is to condition air for human benefit. And we know the UN has a strategic development goal of reducing air particulates. So what we're looking to do is to cross public-private missions to get better leverage and faster impact, socioeconomic impact. So my question is, do these Canadian agencies work with foundations, NGOs, MPOs in their market? Does that clarify?
Maybe, Jim, we can take this offline and work with USCS on this. Does that sound good? Unless someone else has a thought on it?
I have an example of what I have seen. For example, in Digital Supercluster, in the call for proposal stream, there was a stream for non-for-profits. And actually, if you have international collaboration, it's basically required that you find a Canadian partner and you go through that program. So I know we had non-for-profit supported in that project. Also, depending on the area that you are focused, there may be different opportunities, but that is one example that I have seen myself, that if you have international partners with Canadian collaboration, you could actually get qualified for that program and go through the application process.
Great, we'll follow up. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I know that you all have mentioned a lot in terms of digitization in the healthcare space. Can you be more specific in terms of what types of digitalization would be most helpful for the various Canadian cities as they upgrade their healthcare systems? Is there any type of way that any of our companies, as we have a high tech ecosystem here and life sciences that work closely together, what specifically is the Canadian government and provinces looking for to be helpful?
I don't know if, oh, sorry. I don't know if Liran, is he still
Yeah, Liran,
connected?
do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't know if he has maybe a bit more of the digitalization background.
So for us, we're not into the business of digitalizing healthcare. We're really, really early in the process as we focus on the research and the preclinical stage. There's a big need there, but the value chain is so broad and long, so I have to get more details regarding that question. There's many opportunities.
All right, great.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I can quickly answer this. In terms of digitization with healthcare, I think it's all about the data really at the end. How you can have this real life implementation of your technology as a plug and play solution to the healthcare system. One of the major challenges that we have seen globally is connecting with the current healthcare IT infrastructure. This is really like all about the interoperability that you've heard a lot about from the different government programs. Different systems really didn't talk to each other at the beginning when we saw this wave coming, but the systems were really isolated. What we did at MetaOptima, we invested in this integration with the healthcare system. Digitization simply just means how your doctors are handling their workflow and how they are documenting what they are doing. Is it efficient? Is it structured so that AI can help in the future with those decisions or not? And basically for us, we integrated with the major EMRs, practice management system, hospital EHRs like Epic, Cerner, and also the Canadian versions that we have like Oscar and others. So I have that experience. If we can help with anyone in the EMR interoperability connection with the other systems like lab information systems, for example, we have done this. It is a little bit difficult at the beginning, but when you do the first one, the others will also be much easier because now you have the APIs and tools and all the things to connect with the digitized ecosystem.
Great, thank you.
Go
ahead.
Sorry, no, I'd add it's pretty similar. I mean, each province I think has about the same ambitions or the same challenges, and it's all to do with trying to reduce inefficiency, or a lot of it has to do with trying to reduce inefficiency. I will touch, digitization. It's a bit of a stretch here, but I will touch as well. A lot of our healthcare services are stretched over mass geographies as well, right? So the whole reaching out and be able to deliver care in more rural communities as well is a big part of the whole approach to digitalization, but also kind of remote monitoring care as well in the provinces. And so if you take the example here, you have a lot of the leading centers, healthcare centers that are based in Montreal, but they may be serving people that are an 8-hour drive away. So how do you ensure that everybody gets that same level of care and in a timely fashion?
That's great. Thank you so much. Research opportunities and incentives to do research are always a draw for life science companies. Can you please comment on opportunities that would be available and accessible for the Utah participants, since many of you had commented on R&D being real strengths of your cities?
So I can maybe Miriam, because she seems to have quite a bit of experience in R&D, but I think the best resource or what I can say is really to direct and the conversations with, like, I see Leia from Montreal International is on the phone. They can run through all these programs. I mean, it's very hard to explain. There's a lot of different, it's like multifaceted. And so they have great teams in Investment Quebec International and obviously the Canadian delegation as well. But they can run through all those programs. And depending on what your ambitions and your resourcing level look like, then obviously there's different programs that can be tailored to you.
Great, thank you.
We had this flow chart that I had created at the beginning, how to start with one MyTax internship and grow your business to up to $30 million in funding. And this was just really the connecting the dots in the BC and Canadian ecosystem and different programs. And I called it a cheat sheet for founders. So how you can leverage one internship as a new, because I was a scientist, entrepreneur, no funding at the beginning when we started this. And this was just really connecting all the granting programs, like the funding programs and non-dilutive funding to help with your R&D projects, because R&D is expensive and you don't know if it's going to work or not. So not having that support will prevent companies from like innovating new solutions just because simply they don't have resources. I will be more than happy to update this because now we are in our Series B financing and we've passed those days, but I have provided that to many, even investors outside of Canada that they knew us. I was their free advisor to help them with their companies to come to Canada and basically utilize the R&D resources here. So yes, happy to do that and help with the roadmap of Canadian funding to support innovation and R&D in Canada. One of the investors told me it's almost free to do business in Canada, and I told them it's almost free to innovate in Canada. And that's the level of support we have from our government for building innovations here and basically exporting Canadian technology to serve, like in our case, millions of patients. That's how Canadian companies are competitive in this space. That's how we can grow from one intern and 2 founders to 65 employees in like 4 or 5 years in the difficult space of healthcare and AI. So yeah, happy to do that. I don't want to take a lot of your time, like for this topic specifically here, but I have that roadmap that I will be more than happy to share with the audience here.
Great. So David, I just saw David Smith wrote, there's a website where Utah companies can get qualified for selling PPP products and equipment. And he looks like he's sending it. It might be helpful for Michael Kashgarian and Mark McLeod and Peter Wright, or anyone that it makes sense to kind of go through, maybe to have like a cheat sheet for each of our companies. Maybe there's one sort of national level of this is how we get you know, the initial sort of approvals in Canada, and then the provincial levels of what, you know, who are the people we contact at that point. That could be helpful because, at least for me, I'm not sure about the companies, it feels like a little bit of an overwhelming process from the outside. It sounds like there are a ton of resources, but to know where to harness those seems a bit overwhelming. So maybe each of the sort of city contacts, if you all are okay with that, to kind of give us a cheat sheet for our Utah companies, maybe, and then maybe the panelists, if you all have had any great suggestions, to give those to Michael and Mark and Peter, if there's anything that they would have that would not be necessarily on their sort of cheat sheet, if you will. That would be really helpful, I think, for our companies. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah, just a quick comment. There is a website that you can actually go and search based on your sector. The stage of your company is really, really important as well, because my experience is as an entrepreneur starting a startup and growing the business right to the level that we are. So I may not know all the resources that actually are available for bigger companies, but that website will, it's actually on the one of the government programs that gives you the full picture of all academic programs and findings based on the tiers, like where you are in terms of your proof of concept, product ready, commercialized, expansion, different stages.
Great. Can you give that website to Peter? Would you mind?
I will.
That would be great. Thank you.
Courtney, I'll just reiterate, because even websites, sometimes we can spend a lot of time, and sorry, Miriam, I'm not saying this is not a great one, I'm sure it is, but sometimes we can spend a lot of time trying to figure things out. I really encourage, and I can't speak as I don't know all the bodies across the country, but in Montreal, at Montreal International and Investment Quebec, They have great people specialized in life science who help bring the municipal, the federal, the provincial, everybody together. So I would encourage people to not try and figure out too much on their own, but to get in contact with one of these people, which obviously some of them are on the line today, because they'll really help to streamline. They'll analyze, like I said, there's so many programs available. And so they'll analyze your own situation and what you're trying to accomplish and then recommend the best path forward. And they also do, you know, site visits. They organize meetings with all the different stakeholders that you need to talk to. So they'll facilitate you in that whole process. And I can only speak from obviously at the Montreal level, but they have an awesome team, and people that have worked with them have said how they simplified their life.
That's great.
Shane, I just like to echo that. We did the same thing. And the great thing about this is the majority of them, the fee is based on success. So they take a percentage of whatever you're able to get from the government, whichever support.
Terrific. Well, I appreciate, I'm going to just do one more quick question and then hand it back over to Miles. What is Canada's position on the use of nanomaterials in treatment of blood diseases? I don't know if that might be too specific for this group, but does anyone have any experience in that? Okay, the company that asked that will deal with that specifically. Shane, it looks like you might have had a comment on that.
Sorry, I just got a little internet cut. Can you repeat just the
okay, it said, what is Canada's position on the use of nanomaterials in treatment of blood diseases?
Cool.
Yeah, I know it's pretty specific, but I figured if anyone happened to know about that, great. We'll deal with those. Some of the more specific questions we didn't get to, we can handle differently when offline. But thank you everyone so much, and I'll hand this over to Miles, and hopefully Michael, Mark, and Peter, if I can get sort of a cheat sheet by city and all these great suggestions that I think, so it's a little less overwhelming for the companies. We can have sort of just a guideline of how to approach that, then they will know where to go. I'd appreciate all of your great suggestions and the time you spent. Thank you so much. And Miles, over to you. Miles? Okay. Well, he might be having an internet problem like he did this morning. He had a computer issue. But anyways, thank you all. And thank you to the Canadian Consulate Group, David Smith, and to all of our great speakers. And we hope that you have an amazing day. And we're grateful for the time you all spent with us. So again, companies, feel free to contact me directly. And I will be in touch with the rest of you for follow-up. And Hannah will send out all the information once we get it. Thank you so much. Have a great day.